Hey there, guys and gals. Welcome to another episode of the Comic Book Podcast. This is author B.L. Blankenship, who is now becoming a comic book writer. Yay. My very first comic that I had put out was Zorro Kills until I found out that it was trademarked. There's currently a book company that is looking at that, and Zorro Inc. had told me that they liked a lot of it, but that there would be some changes that would have to be made for it to come out. Whether they're wanting to make the changes, which they can exercise the right to or not to, they're super nice, and I really love and appreciate them. Either way, I get it. It's cool. They can or cannot exercise that right, or whether they were just being sweet and placating me, whatever. If they don't exercise that right at some point in time here in the future, I would just be going ahead and eating all of the money that I paid to get it produced. You know, uh, in a third world country, it would be a lot. It's quite a bit. It's more than a paycheck. But anyway, I just eat the money to do that. I would put it out as a free e-comic rather than have it like do nothing, and that way people could read it and enjoy it. Quite frankly, you can put out any copyright trademark thing, any that you want to, as long as you're not making money off of it. Marvel, DC, Warner Brothers, whatever, Image, it doesn't matter. If you're not making a dime off of it, if nobody's making any money, you're cool. So either you're just really talented, or you're paying people, or doing whatever. Um, my comic that is currently out, fresh on the presses. You can order it if you are a store. You can get it through Ingram Spark right now. It's also available in an e-comic, online Kindle and Comixology and everything. Is called Cat and Mouse #1. If it does well enough to serialize it, hey. If not, it's just a one shot. Without naming their names ever in that, because I don't want to get like sued or anything. I do realize that Image Comics just did that in the Savage Dragon episode. They said Mickey Mouse up one side and down the other. But essentially, you will recognize that Mickey Mouse and Minnie Mouse and the Cheshire Cat and that Felix the Cat and that Oswald the Lucky Rabbit, Winnie the Pooh, Piglet, Eeyore, on and on, Popeye Universe, all kinds of things are there. Snuffy Smith is in it because Snuffy Smith back in the day with Barney Google, that's public domain stuff, and then there's some public domain Betty Boop things in it as well, even though neither of their names are actually stated. If for some reason I would be incorrect and somebody would come to me and say, "Hey, dude, cease and desist, it's a trademark," then we would be talking about making another free e-comic. Not super productive in the money making for me doing comic books so far. Propaganda Comics #1 will be out here later this year. We're about to do a crowdfunding thing to try and offset some of the expenses of doing that. Maybe do even some cooler, neater stuff and everything, and have some things that you can get specifically, exclusively by going ahead and backing that. It's very satirical. It's like an homage to Mad Magazine, more or less, DC-esque type world. But yeah, it's got some stuff like that going on in it. Not going to say a lot on that because that's not why I'm here. My original comic, Hellfire, #1, will also be out at some point this year, and there's a story behind that. And if that's what this episode was about, I would be talking to you all about that. So here today, we are going to be reviewing 3 comics. That's why you're here. Beyond Reality, ooh, by Vault Comics. Hellblazer, no, that's #1. Hellblazer #2, that's in the Sandman universe and everything. Um, and then finally, the Penguin #7. The Penguin teams up with the Bat. What could go wrong? While I'm not going to be telling you the entire outline of the stories, I'm going to go ahead and give you my take and my insights on all of these. like the people that wrote these. I too am a writer. I've written plays and songs and musicals and novels and novellas and comic books and according to some people, quite well. I'm a good writer. I'm just not a good editor, and I really appreciate all of the editors that have helped me and that do the type of work that they do in these as well. I will write something incorrect and read it the correct way, so it's something special to have an editorial eye. Um, in the description of this video, I will be listing off all of the writers, the artists, the colorists, the letterer, and the editors for each of these. If you are a comic book writer or artist wanting to get into that, I am doing unto others as I would have them do unto me by listing the editors. God only knows how many people hound these people, but if you were to get hired in with them, it would be by meeting them, talking to them, acting like a person. Uh, to them and all of that type of thing. So you will be getting their names, and um, just uh, just for the sake of not like slaughtering everybody's name or whatever, I'm not going to go ahead and read every one of them right here. Rather, they will be typed out just like they are in the books, so they're spelled correctly. Okay, let's get into it. So Beyond Reality, all three of these books, by the way, are completely different books. I don't just mean different in the way that they're different. I mean, like, everything about them's different. So Beyond Reality, I want to say for this book, it is 28 pages of story. And this, of the three books, and this is how I am as like a writer. So if you have me write a comic, which I've did several now, quite a few that are like done with the writing part. I tell a story. I tell a story like it's a television show, right? So you're watching like Gotham or Smallville or whatever, and so you get the plot and you get a conclusion of that show, and it could be like an ongoing thing, but you get like an episode. Everyone that I've written thus far are 24 pages of stories, and then the full color cat and mouse number one is 18 pages of story, by the way. But this one is 28 pages of story, Beyond Reality. And, you know, without going into some big, like, philosophical talk and all that, the gist of this in this world, in this reality, in this comic, and you've heard people talk about it, and oh, do I have a story that I could just go off the rails and tell you? I I drove an 18-wheeler way back in the day, and I had the most psychotic co-driver that anyone could possibly have, and he was the first person to ever throw this theory at me. You know, C.S. Lewis, he talks about theories against Christianity, and he says that the devil's claims. He says that it's not really that they're like smart, you know, that they're intelligent arguments, but that they're clever, and that's the way, you know, that this type of thing is. This couple talks about how they think that maybe the world that they live in might be a virtual reality, or, you know, that they're part of the program. If you were looking for a story that's basically what dreams may come in the Matrix put together, the baby that those two would have, what dreams may come, Robin Williams, you know, he goes to hell to save his wife. And the Matrix put together, Beyond Reality, or I'm sorry, Beyond Real. I keep saying it wrong. Forgive me, Vault. Beyond Real is that comic for you. I will say there, while there's no profanity in this, there is some non-sexualized nudity in within this comic. If that bothers you, or for young kids, or whatever. The artwork in it. Let me just flip through a page. The artwork inside of this, you know, it's pretty cool. It's the coloring is fantastic. And on that note, I want to say that Hellblazer number 2 and that Beyond Reality number 1 have Jordie Bellaire, the same colorist for both issues. So that's what you've got here. The one of the individuals in it, the man he winds up in a coma, and the woman, part of her gets broken from an accident, and she's able to see the program, and she's trying to bring him back and trying to fix him because she likes his program and what he's made up with. That's the gist. Nonetheless, this is the only one of these three that you get like a full-fledged story out of. So Vault Comics, Beyond Real, numero uno. All right. They do a lot of cool effects in this too, with the coloring and all that. Kind of like a double vision blur, you know, like if you cross your eyes, almost like what the 3D things do with the red and the blue lines, you know, how they're not quite laying on each other. They do things like that, all kinds of different effects, all kinds of different coloring effects through it, where you've got rows of panels that are this color and that color and another color, and then stuff where everything's really, I don't know if you'd say more realistic, but kind of colored that way, and then things that are kind of like neutral colors to each other, and so a whole lot of neat stuff is done with that. I am a graphic artist, so I think in pictures. So yeah, there you have that. I'll go ahead and say the next one that I'm talking about, Hellblazer #2, the Dead in America. That is John Constantine is who that stars, and it is within the Sandman universe, if you are familiar. So they talk about the Endless in here. That's, you know, the Sandman and Death and so on and so forth. Several different individuals that are gods, quote unquote, but they're not human. You know, they're what they are. They're the Endless. In that, what I would say that this does, as far as story or whatnot, is it introduces, or it kind of gives you layers to a particular character, a particular not so good character in it. You have kind of a fight with not a lot of build up to it. I had not read the first episode. There's some talk that he knew about this thing that he gets into the fight with. The artwork in this book is it's fantastic. While there's no nudity in this particular book, this is the one of the three that has quite a bit of profanity. When I say profanity, you got a bunch of F-bombs, and you've got a few blasphemies written in here, you know, GD. But you've got some really sharp artwork in here. Again, the same exact colorist was doing this book. So John Constantine, Hellblazer, Dead in America, that is 28 pages of story. Again, whereas Beyond Real gave us a full-fledged, you know, going through it story. You got the mission, you know, like Lord of the Rings 1 or whatever. You know, you know what it's all about, what this whole thing's about, and everything like that. So it's like a full episode. This is more or less that, where is she? That lady right there. It's more or less about flushing out her character. She's very old. She was raped by a Greek god, and she hated him for it, and she screamed until she bit her tongue in half, and he healed it. And because he couldn't stand to be hated, he granted her wish to give her as many, I guess, years of life as there were dust in her hand, grains of dust in her hand. And she's long expended that. How is she staying alive? By doing very bad and desperate things, people. So that's the world that we're living in. She knows John Constantine because he's the guy to know if you're creepy and supernatural or whatever, knows all about the endless. There's I'm just going to go ahead and not being derogatory at all. I'm saying this for people that don't get like the Sandman universe and all that. If you don't know anything about it, if you're like an outsider looking in, it's going to come off like nerd speak to you because there's a lot of references to things. You get what I'm talking about. Like if you're all into the Lord of the Rings or Star Trek, and there's somebody that just has no clue, and you just start like rattling off all this different stuff. It's got like talk like that in it, and it's got like writing that's not in English writing, that's her trying to do like magic-y stuff that involves the endless. So that's what you've got in Hellblazer Number 2, again, fantastic artwork. The coloring in all 3 of these books is absolutely great. That is another 28-page story. Again, Jordie Bellaire did a great job in those. And as much as Jordie Bellaire gets around, not quite into the Penguin number 7, there is a different colorist for that. You hear me, Marcelo? There's a different colorist for that. But Penguin number 7, I was very interested in this. You know, the name Tom King really pops when you hear Tom King. It's like, oh yeah, you know, I've heard of him and everything. He's the writer, particularly for this comic book series. So whereas Beyond Real is a full-fledged story and it's 28 pages, and Hellblazer 2 is an introduction to a character, which is it is a story of the character. It's kind of telling you where they're coming from. So it's building to something. Whereas you get that this is more about like a scheme and about a tone. So if Beyond Real was like a normal episode of a normal show that you would watch, Penguin would equate to being a soap opera. And I know what I'm talking about because I've watched my fair share of soap operas. Young and the Restless, you know what I'm talking about. My mother, she's seen like every episode. And I used to watch it for years. It's been a few years since I haven't, but I guarantee you, I work. I guarantee you that if I was sitting down and got back into it, I would click right back in, know who the main players are in the show. Actually prayed for several of the actors and all that different things going on in their lives. So I know a bit about the people and things that they'll put out, especially the fellow that plays Victor Newman, who's a fantastic actor. He's been in a lot of stuff. He's been in Titanic. He was in Return to what was the second Planet of the Apes movie, the legit OG Planet of the Apes movie, not the new series. He was in that trying to hunt him down and everything. He's fantastic. But anyway, so Penguin number 7, it's very much like that kind of thing. Now, the style of art for this, which by the way, it is a 22-page story. I'm just calling them all stories, because even though they kind of go little different ways with that. But whereas the other 2 books are 28 pages, and I'm not counting ads, I'm just saying like actual story because they all do have like some ads and things in it for the Suicide Squad video game and other comics and whatever. It comes over all right. It's pretty cool. You know who the Penguin is, so I mean, really, you've got like that kind of ground to play with. The art style, who let me think of what page that I'm going to go ahead and flip around to. Um, let's see, that'll work. The art style is kind of a dark, I don't know. Is it a gritty, grungy, not quite like Spawn, but I mean it has some stuff going on. I like what they did with a lot of the colors. Again, here's where I am with like colorization, because I am like a dude that really loves black and white art. And I understand if it's done a certain way, particularly if it's not, then no, by all means, no. Like I'm talking Frank Frazetta, kind of black and white art. I'm talking about like the old Vampirella stuff, where it like looks more realistic. The dude that did Hellblazer, over there, he could totally rock that style. He has that realistic kind of thing going on, with his stuff. But color can add so much to it if it's done super well. And all 3 of these books have colorists that are doing a fine job. They were all pretty keen. I will say for the Penguin number 7, uh, it has no nudity and it has no language. Some people die in it. The speech is different in the Penguin thing because there's a ton of thought bubbles. It's telling you his narrative. You've got all these little like square bubbles saying he's thinking this over here and this is getting said over here, and then somebody's got a word bubble where they're talking over here, and it's yeah, it's different the way that that's pacing, and it might almost come off to you as like jerky, kind of the way that that is. That could be like my only real complaint with it. With Beyond Real, it's the most fluid as far as the story goes, but then they do some things that, as an artist, that you have to look at it and think, do I like this or do I not like this? They'll have a frame. I'm not talking about like ending where the page ends. I'm saying that the page is still going, but they'll have a frame inside that page, and inside of that frame, beneath the outline of it, they'll have like a word bubble that's like, going off the edge of that outline with some words that you're not seeing, that your human brain knows the words that they're saying, but like if it was they would like hack off the left side of the T. And I don't know that I aesthetically like that. They'll have some word bubbles that overlap other word bubbles. That's just me nitpicking. I don't know if I necessarily like that. That's not the writer person either. That's the artist putting in the word bubbles. I guess that's how that works. Whoever put those word bubbles there. It's creative. It's something that I've absolutely never ever ever seen. Though someone may have very well did that, but I don't know. It was a little weird, but it was the smoothest as far as a read went. Then Hellblazer, it comes on in the midst of that, and again, the only thing with some readers is that it goes off into nerd speak, laced with heavier profanity. Uh, so yeah, that's what you have for these three comics. Totally different animals, and if it's your cup of tea, there you go. But that is me going ahead and covering these three comics for you. Whoa, here today. I'm sitting at an angle because I'm trying to stay like kind of centered and everything. I got a curtain behind me and all kinds of stuff. But there you have it, the Penguin #7, Beyond Real #1, and Hellblazer #2. One Vault cover, two DC comic covers. That is my first ever comic book review. Tell me your thoughts. Tell me how I did. Tell me if I'm wrong. Tell me what I need to learn. Tell me if you agree with that. Whatever. Anyway, that's just my insight, and I'll be coming back at you in the next episode, which I've advertised on my LinkedIn about, oh man, a handful, quite a handful. I believe it's 5 different comics, and they are all the #1 issues of those comics, to talk about how they start up, how they get going, and what I think about the look, the feel, and so forth of those comics. Few of them have been covered, like we've got Wesley Dodd's The Sandman. I'll be covering Gunslinger Spawn #1 and a whole bunch of that goodness. So follow along, and I would love to hear back from you if you do a comic book podcast and want me to come on and talk about my stuff or your stuff or somebody else's stuff or review your comic or what have you. I have overly developed people skills, and when I was put into first grade, they moved me back into kindergarten because I flipped my desk over and I'd throw pencils at people and say, I'm Batman. It's okay. I graduated high school early. All right. Y'all have a wonderful day, and keep reading.